Welcome, everyone. This is Foundation Course 2 on Buddhist Refuge, and we're about to start our second class. But before we do that, so that we can make the best use of our time, so by creating the most powerful seeds that we can for our future enlightenment, or whatever your motivation is for taking this course or spending this time, then let's just take a moment to bring that clearly to mind. Then, if you'd like, you please join me in doing the prayers. Sangye Chidan Soki Chuknam Lam Changchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Daki Chishe Kipe Sunam Ki Drola Penchir Sangye Juparsho Sangye Chidan Soki Chuknam Lam Changchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Daki Chishe Kipe Sunam Ki Jola Penchir Sangye Juparsho Sangye Chiran Soki Chuknam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Daki Chishe Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Pinchir Sangye Duparsho. Tashi Puki Jukshin Metok Tram Virab Lingshi Nyinde Gampadi Sangye Shindu Mikte Uwargi Jokun Namdak Shingla Juparsho Idam Kuru Ratna Mandala Kamniryatayami. So before we go on, does anyone have any questions about the first class? I forgot to mention last time that the readings for this course, unlike most of the others, are broken down by week of teaching, not by each class. So the first class we had this week covered only part of what was included in the readings, and today we'll cover the rest. So just so you know, if you wanted to wait until after Friday's classes to do the reading and homework, that's fine. No questions? Once again, I have only perfect students here. You are very suspicious, inviting me here to teach you so that I create the karma. I plant the seeds for sharing the precious teachings, while you, Buddhas, pretend to be students. Thank you. Okay, so last time we talked about the perfection of wisdom. We talked about the sources for our discussion about Buddhist refuge, our sources of the perfection of wisdom. And we talked about objects of refuge. One thing I would like to correct from what I said on Wednesday is that I didn't give the best definition of the perfection of wisdom. What I said was the perfection of wisdom is the direct perception of emptiness in the mind of an Arya Bodhisattva in deep meditation, which was imbued with the wish to attain enlightenment to benefit all living beings. So a more correct definition of the perfection of knowledge, of wisdom, is the knowledge of a person of the greater way with which they perceive emptiness and which is imbued with the wish for enlightenment. So what's different? Why did I feel the need to make a correction with you today? What's different? One of the things that's different is that the person doesn't have to be an Arya Bodhisattva. Rather, it's a person of the greater way. So this is the knowledge and wisdom in the mind of someone, and that someone doesn't have to have yet seen emptiness directly. Okay. They still have the wish to attain enlightenment. They do have bodhicitta in their heart. And it sort of presumes always in their heart. If it's there, if it's present in this person's heart while they perceive, which could be contemplate, think about, talk about, uh, teach to others about emptiness. Okay. So it's also itself not the direct perception of emptiness and not in a state of deep meditation. It could be, um, you know, when you're doing your evening rejoicing before you go to sleep and think about the good things you did over the day. It could be that you, for example, rejoice about thinking about emptiness. So even at that time, uh, that could be the perfection of wisdom. Okay, so I do apologize for that. Any questions about that? Of course not. Okay, so we make a distinction here when in talking about Buddhist refuge or refuge in general between uh, the refuge, which means the object or the person to whom we go for refuge, and going for refuge, going for that protection. So we talked last time about objects of refuge. We talked about, running to mom when we're a kid for protection. So our mother, when we were children, most likely this is a universal experience, is going for protection to our mom and our dad. And then we talked about the three jewels, the Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, and Sangha jewel. We talked a little bit about the difference between a Buddha. Actually, we didn't talk about this one. We did talk about the difference between the Dharma and the Dharma jewel, right? And the Sangha and the Sangha jewel. A distinction between the Buddha and the Buddha jewel. Um, the apparent Buddha jewel, like we talked about, for example, with Dharma and the Dharma jewel, where the apparent Dharma jewel, which would be Dharma, is the books of Dharma, the texts that we have, the teachings, the words coming out of our teacher's mouth. That's apparent Dharma jewel. And then the ultimate Dharma jewel is the realizations and cessation in the mind of a person who has, so for example, in the mind of someone who has, someone who's on the path, who's been practicing the Dharma, when they have attained renunciation, when they have reached a state where they're thinking day and night about getting out of this cycle of suffering. They have that realization of renunciation. So that is a Dharma jewel. And then another example was after seeing directly the nature of reality, having had a direct perception of emptiness, then doubt in the path, doubt in the Buddhist teachings, it is gone. There is a cessation, an ending, a stopping of the existence of doubt in the teachings. So with the Buddha and the Buddha jewel, the apparent Buddha, in a similar way, could be the pictures of enlightened beings that we have. You know, those, they're called tankas in Tibetan, of enlightened beings. Those were originally painted or drawn by people who saw them, who had a direct experience of a Buddha. So they are, you know, and the lineage continues on, like as with the teachings are taught from teacher to student and on and on and on, so is the painting of these images taught, you know, from the person who saw, taught someone how to draw, and then they taught someone how to draw. And it's very specific, these images. So they're correct, but they're apparent Buddha jewel. They are not the Buddha jewel because it's a painting. And then the ultimate Buddha jewel would be the enlightened being themselves. And then once we talk today about what it means to go for refuge, you know, we've talked about our object and what does it mean now to actually go to that object for protection. Once we've finished talking about that, I think that that distinction of the ultimate jewel and the apparent jewel will become more clear, because which one can actually protect us? Which one can benefit us, can help us in the situation we're in? So, going for refuge, like we did, if you joined me before class, we recite these words, and we recite words that say we're taking refuge in the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. And you recite this prayer. So taking refuge is not reciting words. That's only nominal taking of refuge, in name only, right? We also, as we recite the words, we'll get more into it, but it's what's going on in your mind as you recite those words. Are you thinking about those words? Are those words like a proclamation of truth of what's in your mind? So let's first talk about where'd my share go? There it is. Let's first talk about the definition of taking refuge or going for refuge. Say it means the same thing. Take refuge, or go for refuge. My chat disappeared. There you are. You disappeared. Come back. There you are. Okay. So here is the definition of going for refuge. And if you'd care to repeat with me these words. Yul, Shen, Larangtop, Ki, Pongnian, Du, Rewa, Chawe, Sempa, Kiamdroy, Sini. Yul Shen Larangtop, Ki, Pongnian, Du, Rewa, Chawe, Sempa, Kiamdroy, Sini. So let's go through what these words are in this definition. Yul means the object of refuge. In this case, Shen means other. So here it is, well, we'll talk about it. Something other. La, in this case, means two. This is one of those particles that can mean many different things in the Tibetan language. But here it means two. Wrong means me or itself. Po means power. And as an example, here's this word that uses tok, this phrase, tok che men. And this is the power, and ke is to give rise to, and men is medicine. And this is the word that Tibetans use for vitamins. Ki, we extend this because of the sa suffix. Ki, so it's an instrumental. It means by. It's indicating that something is doing something. Rewa, that means hope. Hope. Pongnian du, that means in providing assistance. Providing assistance. Shawa, that means to put. And sempa, this can mean different things. As with most Tibetan words, actually, it's a very contextual language. It can mean any movement of the mind. Anytime the mind, takes an object. It can mean a thought, an emotion. It can mean a state of mind. And here we can think about it as a state of mind. So those are all the words that came before this little comma here, which is a break in the phrasing. So here's what comes after the comma. Chamdro, that this means going for refuge. And the pieces of it are kya. Kya. That means refuge. And dro means to go. To go. And when we stick it together, the pronunciation changes. It's not kyapdro, it's kyamdro. Because there is this little leading apostrophe, which means it's an open vowel. It's an ah. It's a little ah. Because of that, this ba sound changes to a sort of a ma sound. So we smush it together. When those two words come together, we smush the pronunciation. So it becomes kyamdro. Kyamdro. And here in the pronunciation, we say kyamdroy. And what this indicates is this little apostrophe I right there. And in the script, it's this right here. Kyamdroy. And that little apostrophe I is an instrumental that links these two phrases together. It links kyamdro with tseni. And tseni, that means definition. So when we stick it together, kamdroy tseni, with that little, how we spell it in Tibetan would be agiku I, that little apostrophe I. It means the definition of going for refuge. So everything before this marker, which is called a tsek, and you don't need to know that, you're not in a Tibetan class. Everything that comes before the comma is what the definition of going for refuge is. Okay, so let's talk about that. So we can say that the state of mind that puts all its hopes in another object. And that state of mind is rangto. It is of its own power. So a state of mind under its own power puts all its hopes in some other object being able to provide assistance, to give benefit. So that's what it means to go for refuge, to take refuge. So we've got another object, someone other than ourselves. We talked about mom. We talked about the Buddha jewel. So some other object. And we're we're in some situation where we need help and we can't help ourselves. So we find another person who can help us, who has the power to help us, who we believe has the ability to help us. And we put our hopes in them helping us. We really believe that the object has the pung yin. It has the ability to assist us. We talked last time about two elements of refuge, two parts. For refuge to take place, yes, thank you, Wanbu. The first one is being scared, being fearful of something. That's the first requirement. And what's the second? Does anyone remember? It's the belief that the person we go to can help us. So when we're going for refuge, there's also two parts. There's someone who is someone other than us, or an object other than us. Doesn't have to be a person, it can be an object. Because what we're talking here is in general, what does going for refuge mean? Right, Huanglong, belief that the others can protect us. So there has to be another object, someone other than ourselves. And then the next part is the hope and belief. The hope that they help us and the belief that they can. That they have the power to help us. So it's in this hope and belief that they have the ability to help us. That's related to a particular object, to that particular other object. So it's not just taking refuge is not just sitting and saying, oh, I wish someone could come and help me. I have hope someone will come. I believe someone who can help me will come. No, it's that hope and belief in a particular object, person, or a thing. So when we go for refuge, we have this state of mind. And like I said before, it's not like just reciting the words of the refuge prayer, but it's having the thoughts of what those words mean in our minds at the same time. There's this joke from the Lam Rim, the teachings on the stages of the path to enlightenment. That objects of refuge are like a pavilion, like a building, like in a park. It's not really a building with sides, but it has a roof, and the roof is held up by 4 posts. So it's not a closed building. So you can like if it's raining, you'd want to go and go to be under the pavilion and be protected from the rain. But the joke is that you're at the park and it starts to rain, and you just stand where you are and say, pavilion, 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 as if that's going to help you. you you have to want to go to that object, right? You want to go under the pavilion. So that's kind of what it's like if we recite the prayers and we don't think about the meaning of the words that we're reciting. It would be like standing in the park in the rain and just saying, pavilion, pavilion, pavilion. Okay, so this is the definition of refuge in general. Taking, having, for any object, not necessarily an ordinary object like your mother or a Buddhist object, but just in general, this is what going for refuge means. So there are 2 kinds of going for refuge. One is ordinary, and the other is extraordinary or exceptional, right? So let's talk about ordinary going for refuge first. We talked last time about going to mom when there's something going wrong. But the fact is, we didn't stop doing this when we were children. We're going for refuge pretty much all day long. We are looking to things outside of ourselves to protect us from something or to help us with something all the time. The reason we get out of bed in the morning to go to work, because we think that money can protect us from poverty or being homeless or not having enough to eat, or even something as some virtuous thought as wanting to be generous with other people. We need money in order to be generous. We think that. And we think that the way to get money, the way to pay our rent, the way to pay our mortgage, the way to buy food, the way to take care of other people, the way to take care of our children, the way to be generous to causes we believe in or people we believe in, is that we have to go to work and make money. If we didn't have this belief that our job could help us, we wouldn't get up and go to work. Work is not necessarily fun. Now, my job, I love my job because I'm learning how to translate these ancient texts into English. So that's like, I have the best job on earth. I love to get up in the morning and go to work. But, I think back to when I used to work for a governor of a state. And I had to get up early. I had to I had to wear a suit every day, be totally made up and with a suit and high heels and pantyhose and all this sort of nonsense. And I had to drive to work, and then I had to work for, oh, 10, 15 hours a day. And when I got off of work, I had to have back then we didn't have cell phones. I'm old. We had pagers. So I had to have a pager with me. And if I got paged, uh, then I had to go back to work. So while the work was fun, I didn't, it was, that was a lot of time and a lot of effort. Not every morning was I bouncing out of bed to go into work. No, I got out of bed because I had rent to pay and bills to pay. But we're doing this all day long, not just with big things like jobs. Uh, but even with things like when that feeling of hunger arises, um, that's like an ancient physical clue to our species, to human beings, that, oh, your energy is going to run out. This is a sign. You should be afraid of not having enough energy. If you don't have enough sustenance in your body, it's going to die. So it's tied to this fear. I need to eat. And food is what is going to give me nourishment so I can stay alive. So we're doing this all day long, and like having a drink. I think the water will quench my thirst all day long. We're doing this. Anytime we walk down the street, the reason why we meet with our friends, uh, the reason why we do anything is a worldly and ordinary refuge. We're taking refuge. Everything we do has some sort of motivation to it. We don't do things without motivation. Everything is motivated. Like in the karma course, we talked about how important motivation is to the kind of seeds we want to plant, right? We have to be very clear in our motivation. What is our motivation for doing something? So if we've never heard about Buddhist teachings before, we've never been introduced to it, we're just an ordinary person, we don't think too much about this, about what motivates us to do something. We just do it because we just think this is what we have to do. Oh, we have to, when I grow up, I have to get some schooling in to learn some skill that I'll be good at so I can get a job and I can make money and then I can have my own place to live and then I have to find a partner and then I make babies and then I take care of the babies. We have it all. It's like we don't think too much about where that motivation comes from. It's just like, that's what people in my culture do. That's what it is to be human. You go to school, then you get a job, get married, have kids, then you retire, travel, and then you die. And that's it, right? So Buddhism is like, okay, put a hold on that. Let's think about what motivates us to do anything. And how does that motivation play a role in what our future experience is going to be? How does that motivation play a role in the kinds of, now thinking about Buddhism, the kinds of seeds that I plant to create the experiences? What experiences do I want to create for the future? So back to ordinary, going for refuge. Now, the things we put our hopes in, jobs, cars to get us from here to there, all, everything we put our hopes in is temporary. They can't help us. They appear to help us, but we don't understand what's going on. We think that our friends are who makes us feel connected to other people, who give us this kind of this feeling that we get when we're with our friends. Someone knows me, someone likes me, someone likes to spend time with me. Otherwise I'd be all alone. And we think our friends are who give us this feeling of being connected, of being liked, of being worthwhile, worth spending time with. We think this. But our friends can't do that for us. That's a wrong idea. That's a mistaken idea. That something outside of us can actually give us something. Our work, our job doesn't give us money. Money doesn't come from our employer. Money comes from giving. Because things don't come this way. Things go this way. Everything we experience is the ripening of a karmic seed that we planted in our mind by things we thought or did or said in the past. So, I don't know, this, like, thinking about ordinary refuge, there's two things. The one thing is that there's like I don't know, how many billions of people are we up to on the planet now? 9 billion? Are we that high? When I was a kid, it was 7 billion, but it's probably a lot more by now. But out of those billions of people, and then you also include in there insects and animals and birds and fish, every living being is running around thinking, looking for protection, looking for assistance, looking for help. And they're looking outside of themselves, except for, a handful of people when you compare the numbers of the billions, trillions of living beings on this planet alone. And then those of like us who are learning and studying and practicing the Buddhist teaching. There's so few of us. And so I think about all these trillions of beings who are just running around being foolish, really. They can't get any help for the suffering they're going through. They've put their hopes in things that can't help them. And that's very sad. It's very sad. The other thing is that I think about when I think about ordinary refuge is that as a Buddhist practitioner, as someone who has been taught about karma, for example, and emptiness, who has a good understanding, who has meditated on these ideas, who has, I've dedicated my life to this, to the practice of these teachings. There are still some times when I think that having a sip of water is going to quench my thirst. And so it reminds me, when I think about this, to be more mindful during my day in what am I taking refuge in? What am I, yeah, who am I going to refuge for? And so this leads us to the exceptional or special or extraordinary going for refuge. Who or what do we go for refuge for when there's an exceptional going for refuge? Who is the object, or what is the object that we put all our hopes in and we know they can assist us? It's the ultimate refuge. The three jewels. The object of refuge we talked about last class. So there are 5 kinds of exceptional taking of refuge, or 5 kinds of Buddhist going for refuge. Please, Kyebu Chung Dring Chempo Sum. Please say Kyebu Chung Dring Chempo Sum. Kyebu chung dring chempo sum. Kyebu means a person. And in this particular instance, we're talking about human beings. Not in general, Kyebu could include, or person could include any living being, insects, birds, fish. But here we're just talking about human beings. Chung. Chung means small. Small. Drink. We had this last class. Does anyone remember? We were talking about 3 of the Perfection of Wisdom sutras. Middle. Great. Thank you. Middle. And then Chenpo means big. Sum we also had last time, and that means 3. So the 3 types of being, the little beings, the medium beings, and the big beings. So what does this mean? This means not size. We're not talking about how physically big or small a being is. We're talking about, if you've studied, like, for example, with Geshe Michael, the Lam Rim, the Lam Rim is divided into teachings that are focused to a particular level of practitioner. And that level of lower, medium, and higher is related to the motivation that practitioner has. So there are the 3 types of Buddhist practitioners, because remember, these are 5 kinds of Buddhist going for refuge. So we know we're talking about people who at least say they're Buddhist, or who have the desire to be Buddhist, or who are practicing the path. So the first of the 5 is going for refuge that's shared with practitioners of the lesser scope who are at the lower level of these 3 levels of practitioners. Okay, and they have, because it's the lowest, it's still high compared, it's still exceptional compared with the other billions of living beings on the planet. But when we talk about Buddhist practitioners, the lowest, like the minimum motivation they have is that they want to avoid being born in the lower realms in their next life. They've studied about suffering. They know about the realms of existence according to Buddhism. And the lower realms of existence are the hell realms, the animal realm, and the hungry ghost or preta realm. This level of practitioner, the lesser scope, all they want to do is avoid being born in one of those ways in their future life. They know they've got a good thing going here as a human being. They've learned the Dharma. They're interested in the teachings. They've learned about suffering. They've learned that the suffering in these lower realms is incredibly more intense than it is for us as human beings. They know that the suffering is so intense and so powerful that in their future lives, if they were born there, they wouldn't be able to practice the Dharma. Their minds would be so consumed with suffering that they wouldn't be able to think much. They'd always be afraid. So they have a fear of being born in the lower realms. And that's the minimum motivation is wanting to avoid in future lives being born in the lower realm. If someone cares only about this life, that doesn't meet the mark. That's not a Buddhist motivation. You know, being solely consumed with the motivation to, for example, go to as many teachings as possible in this life and and make money so that you can build a retreat cabin somewhere so that you can go and meditate, or to buy Dharma books so that you can study, so that you can deal with the problems of this life. That's not a Buddhist motivation. The lowest Buddhist motivation is to avoid being born in the lower realms in our next lives. So, it's very difficult to take refuge. It assumes that we have a lot of knowledge of the teachings. It assumes that we are like conscious, aware of ourselves and how we think as we live our lives. It requires that we've thought about, that we've seen that everyone dies. And we've learned about suffering and our own, how we create suffering. We know enough to know that we've done some nasty things in the past. We've done them, or even just thought them, or said them to someone else. We know that we have created a great number of seeds for future suffering. And we know that everything we experience comes from what we've done and said in the past. So we know that what we've done is create a lot of future suffering experience for ourselves. And at this minimum level of motivation, we have this fear of being reborn in a state of being that is constantly in suffering, in so much suffering that you can't do anything. But we've also studied enough to believe, to put our hopes in that the three jewels can give us protection from that suffering, that they can give us assistance. We know that by putting the wisdom of the teachings into practice, by developing the wisdom in our own hearts and minds, that is the protection from being born in the lower realms. So that's the first kind of Buddhist going for refuge. The second kind is with the Kyebu Dring, the practitioners of the middle scope. So the medium scope practitioners, they want to get out of suffering altogether. They have renunciation. They want to leave the cycle of suffering. They want to see emptiness directly. They want to work on purifying all of the negative seeds they have that would result in being born in the cycle of pain again. They want to become an arhat. They know that nothing in this world can bring them any pleasure, that everything they experience comes from their own actions in the past, comes from the seeds they planted in the past. They know this. They have this path. We talk as path as a realization. They have this realization in their mind. So that's going for refuge, shared with practitioners of the medium scope, the second kind. The third kind is the Kyebu Chempo, the practitioners of the greater scope. And the greater scope, the motivation is bodhicitta, is the wish to become enlightened in order to benefit all living beings. Their fear is not of future suffering for themselves. Their fear is that any living being anywhere suffers at all. Their fear is suffering, period. That anyone suffer. They don't want anyone to suffer. And as we talked about, there are billions and trillions just on this planet who don't know what to do to avoid suffering. They're mistaken. So there's a reason why I said the first two, the Buddhist going for refuge, shared with practitioners of lesser scope, and the second going for refuge of shared with practitioners of medium scope. The reason I said shared with is that those of the greater scope, those of the greater scope also have those first two. They also don't want to be born in the lower realms. They just don't want anybody to be born in the lower realms, not just themselves. Likewise, they want to get out of suffering, out of the cycle of suffering, but they want everybody to get out of the cycle of suffering, not just themselves. And then likewise with the practitioners of medium scope, the ones who have the motivation to get out of the cycle of pain, they also have the fear of being born in the lower realms. So they also have the motivation to avoid being born in a future life in the lower realms. So these types of going for refuge build on each other. The fourth kind of going for refuge is called Yui Kamdro. Yui Kamdro. And does anyone know? Any of you who are studying Tibetan? Cause, thank you, Ngonbu. Yui refuge. Cause going for refuge. So what this means is so again, we're talking about extraordinary refuge. We're talking about Buddhist going for refuge. So this is going for refuge in some quality that has already been achieved by another person. Like when I go for refuge to the Buddha jewel, I'm going to refuge to the ultimate being who has achieved the state of being awake and omniscient and able to help all living beings. So I'm going for refuge in someone other than myself who already has these things in their mind. They already have the three jewels. They already are the three jewels. So that's cause going for refuge. Then the fifth one of the five is Drebui Kamdro. Kyamdro, sorry. Drebui Kyamdro. And this is results going for refuge. Drebu means result. So what does that mean? Result going for refuge. This is a really cool going for refuge. When I learned about this, I was like, wow, this is really something. This is going for refuge to your own future Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, and Sangha jewel. Your own future Sangha jewel, your own future wisdom of the direct perception of emptiness. Your own future Dharma jewel, realizations and cessations, your own future enlightenment. And because because Buddhas are omniscient, they see all things of the past, present, and future in every moment freshly. When I go for going for refuge in my future Buddhahood, she can hear me. She can help me. She hears me asking for help. And she can help. Why is it she can help? We're going to talk about the last thing today is to talk about the fine qualities of the Buddha jewel. It talked about in the reading, how can the fifth kind of refuge protect us? Well, if you still have the question, Wanbu, after we talk about this, then we can talk about that, okay? So these are the eight qualities are just briefly mentioned in the reading that you have for this week. It talked about the Buddha jewel having all eight fine qualities, and that the Sangha jewel is someone who has, they've seen emptiness directly, but also they have one or more of these fine qualities. So what are these qualities? The first one is that the Buddha is Dumache. The Buddha is uncaused. What? Uncaused? Aren't we here trying to collect the causes to become a Buddha? Please say it's not so. I want to create those causes. What it's referring to by uncaused is the Dharmakaya of a Buddha is uncaused. The emptiness of a Buddha's mind and a Buddha's omniscience is empty of having any nature of its own. Now, just to mention that emptiness of the future Buddha that you will become, that emptiness of your mind, of your wisdom, of your bodies, that you have the emptiness of your mind in this moment is the same emptiness that your mind stream as it continues moving on, right? Moment by moment, this mind continues on, and at some moment it will flip to being the mind of a Buddha. The emptiness of the Dharmakaya is the same emptiness of your mind in this moment. And that's called Buddha nature. That's what Buddha nature means. There are some like crazy sort of ideas out there that Buddha nature is, something that lives inside of you in your heart, and we just need to, uncover it, and then we'll be enlightened. It, it's not a thing that we uncover. Our mind, each moment of our mind lacks a nature of being what it is from its own side. That's what Buddha nature is. That the emptiness of this mind in me, I know you guys are all enlightened because you're just playing for me so I can continue to create the causes to become a Buddha. But the emptiness of my mind, my ordinary mind, will, and it must happen. It will happen for every ordinary person. It's inevitable because it's a mistake to think that things come from their own side. Anyway, this mind that is ordinary now will become the mind of an enlightened being. Each moment is different. It's not like there's one stream as a self-existent thing. No, 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 no. We have moment by moment consciousness awareness. The conscious awareness in this moment will one day flip from being the conscious awareness of an ordinary being to be the conscious awareness of a realized being, and then eventually flip to be the conscious awareness of an enlightened being. Okay, I got to go quicker through the other 7. The next quality is lungi tru, and that means spontaneous. A Buddha is spontaneous. And what this means is there's this excellent metaphor. I just love it. So think about planet Earth and a full moon. And think about all that one side of the planet Earth that the moon is shining on. Each body of water, from oceans to lakes to ponds to little teeny bits of water to the water in our eyes. The moon is reflected in each of those bodies of water. So the metaphor is we are the bodies of water. When we have created the seeds to be the goodness, to receive the teachings, to receive the help, which is the teachings from the Buddha will appear spontaneously. The moon doesn't have to think, oh, I think I'll shine down today. No, it just shines. And it is reflected in any body of water that is on that side of the planet and is still enough to show that reflection. The moon doesn't have to do a thing. We create the causes. When we're ready, when those seeds mature and ripen, we are that calm, still body of water facing the moon, and the Buddha will appear to teach us. I love this. I love this. The third one is Shengi Chengi Top Minpa. The Buddha is realized by no other way. And what this means is it's explained that you cannot perceive a Buddha through conceptual means, through conceptual thought, through normal kinds of perceptions. Now, is that true? No, not technically. People who lived at the same time Shakyamuni Buddha did, they saw him with their senses. They had normal perceptions of the emanation body of an enlightened being. So what this is talking about is perceptions of the Dharmakaya, perception of the Buddha's mind, the emptiness of Buddha's mind and omniscience. The fourth, I'll have to go more quickly. The next three, 4, 5, and 6 come together. A Buddha has knowledge, a Buddha has love, and a Buddha has power. The knowledge is a Buddha has knowledge of our suffering state. The Buddha, because of their omniscience, is aware of the suffering we experience. They're aware of everything we experience, but in particular, they're aware of our suffering. Now, being aware of another person's suffering is not much in and of itself, right? A Buddha also has love. They have the wish. They wish for you. Their love for you is that you have happiness. And that leads to the third. The Buddha has power. It's not enough to just be aware of someone's suffering. It's not enough to be aware of the suffering and to have love that the person not suffer. But the Buddha also has power. And what is the power that the Buddha has? It's the power that not omnipotent. The Buddha is not all powerful. In the Abhidharmakosha commentary that the first Dalai Lama wrote, says the Buddha can't come and recite some magic incantation or sprinkle water on your head and you become enlightened. He can't transfer knowledge to you by bonking you on the head. There's this tradition where teachers sometimes you'll touch foreheads with a teacher. And some people think that, I'm getting the wisdom of the teacher. Well, if you've created the seeds for that to happen, That's great. But a teacher can't just transmit knowledge by bonking you on the head. The Buddha has the power to teach. The Buddha has the power to teach you. And that is the next two of the 8 fine qualities, is that a Buddha has satisfied both needs. So that's 7 and 8. They've satisfied their own needs, which is obvious. They have a paradise body. They're omniscient. They fulfilled all their needs. They've also fulfilled our needs. And this is something that we need to meditate on. And I think this goes to your question, Huangfu. How can a Buddha fulfill my needs? And I'm going over again, for which I apologize greatly, but there's really just a little bit left, if that's okay. A Buddha is totally available and capable to teach us. And that teaching can appear in the form of, like, for example, Geshe Michael teaching us the Dharma. But it can also, a Buddha can also appear in any form to teach us. They can appear as like when we're walking on a path and there's this root in the path, like a tree root in the path, and we don't notice it, we don't see it, we're just looking over here, over there, and then we stub our toe on the root. That could be a Buddha appearing, manifesting as a root that we stub our toe on. That hurts. To teach us. Who knows what they could be teaching us? Whatever is best for us in that moment. Whatever our still lake. Remember, reflecting the moon. Whatever goodness has just ripened for us to receive a teaching, what we need right now. For some reason, what we needed right then was to stub our toe on a tree root. Maybe it was to become more aware of our surroundings. Maybe it was to stop. Maybe we were having thoughts that were running towards being negative. Maybe it was to jolt us out of those strings of thoughts. Who knows what it could be? But they can appear in any form as our goodness ripens for them to appear and help us. Now, very, very quickly, I just want to talk about, there are temporal or short-term and ultimate or long-term purposes for going for refuge. And here again, we're talking about Buddhist refuge. The short-term purpose for going for Buddhist refuge is that there is no other protection that can benefit us in this life than the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, than the teachings of the Buddha as we practice the Buddhist teachings, we will be planting the seeds for pleasant experiences. For example, by learning about that generosity is what creates wealth, we start practicing giving material or other kinds of benefit to other beings, to other people. Those seeds can ripen into an experience of having what we need. You know, if we practice giving other people our love and attention, then in our future experience, we will be loved by others. We won't be able to help ourselves from being happy, right? If this is true, if karma and emptiness are true, it must eventually result in that. And then, of course, the long-term benefit is total and complete enlightenment, or whatever our motivation was. If we're a practitioner of the lower scope, then the ultimate purpose for our taking refuge is that we will never be born again in the lower realms. Like that. I apologize for going long. I really thought that this time I would make it without any time issues, but I guess I got excited about some things and went into more detail than I thought I was going to. I'm sorry about that. So please, 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 remember to dedicate your having spent time here today thinking about these things. Dedicate towards, not only being able to take refuge fully, right? Not just in words, but in with your whole heart. May we have planted the seeds for us to do that. May those seeds ripen that way, and may they also ripen into our own future enlightenment so we can benefit all living beings. Thank you so much. And I am so inspired by you and your practice. And thank you for your practice. Thank you, live translators, for you're just amazing. Not possible at all without you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Geshe Michael, for teaching these classes. I love you all. Have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you next Wednesday.
Thank you so much.